Hello everyone, welcome to this Python lecture 01. In this lecture, we'll have a simple intro about Python and its data types with clear examples. Now, why Python? Because it's very easy to learn. If you are new to coding, then Python is the best option. Its syntactical format is very easy when compared to other programming languages like C, C++, and Java. Applications of Python. With the help of Python, you can build websites, you can build web app, you can create graphical user interface. Python is widely used in data science and machine learning field as well as developing games. Now, a difference between scripting language and programming language. If you are going for a job interview, there may be a question whether Python is a programming language or a scripting language. The answer is the Python is a scripting language. What's the difference? Programming language first gets compiled. All the high-level code will be converted into machine language before it gets executed, but rather scripting language gets interpreted. Now, let's see the data types used in Python. First one is integer. Integer represents all the whole numbers. Floating point, decimal numbers. In integer, we'll be storing data values like 5, 10, all whole numbers. In floating point, it will be like 17.5, 1.6, and so on. Strings. In Python, whatever you give inside a double quote or single quote, it will be considered as strings. List. List is very simple to create in Python. All you need to do is put your elements inside a square bracket and separate it with commas. Dictionaries. The main speciality of dictionary is you can access the value just by mentioning the key of that particular value which you stored in the dictionary. Tuples. Tuples is just exactly like list, but the only thing is it is immutable. You can't modify it. Let's say in 1, 2 and good, if you want to add a new element, you can't add it. At the same time, if you want to remove an element inside a tuple, that too you can do it. Then sets. Sets are unordered collection of unique objects. It's very simple. You can't repeat the values which is already stored in a set. Let's say in that particular example, if you want to add one more A, it will show you that you have added A, but when you try to return the set, it will show you only the first A you mentioned. And finally, Boolean. If the logical validation is correct, it will return you true. If the logical validation is false, it will return as false. Now, let's move on to the practical session and let me give you an example for each and every data type. In this practical session, let's start with variable assignment. Assigning values to a variable is very simple in Python. All you need to do is give your variable name and assign the value you want. And in any time when you call the variable, it will show you the value. Overwriting the value also is very simple. Let's say a equals 10. And when you check what is stored inside a, now you will get 10. If you try to do the same thing in other programming languages like C++, it may throw you some error. And also, if you want to store an integer value inside a variable, you have to mention the data type. But in Python, all you need to do is mention the value which you want to store inside that particular variable. Python automatically detects what type of data you are trying to store inside that particular variable. Now, let's start with integer float. First, let's say int1 equals 5 and int2 equals 6 and float1 equals 9.1, float2 equals 10.2. Okay, let's try to check what are the values which are stored in int1 and 5. If you want to check what kind of data type is this particular value is, all you need to do is check type and inside the bracket you have to mention the variable name. 1. You know, it automatically shows you that 5 is an integer value. Let's check for float 2, and that's it. The upcoming videos will be specifically looking into int and float alone. Now let's move on to string. Here 1 equals, you can give double quotes or single quotes, everything is fine. Hello. str2 equals hi, and let's print those two strings, s1 and string 1 and string 2. See, hello and hi. You can also store numerical values inside this double quotes. Let's check. str1 equals 1 2 3. Okay, and in str2, let's say we'll store the same value without those single quotes, 1 2 3. And now let's check the type of both the strings. Type of str1 and print the type of str2. See, just the single quotes makes this value a string, whereas the same element mentioned without the single quotes, it has been considered as integer. Now let's move on to the next data type, which is list. Let's create L1, and inside the list you can store 1 2 3. We'll create another list and we will store strings inside it. Let's store str1 and str2. Okay, let's try to print L1 and L2. See, you can see here in L1 all the elements are integers, whereas in L2 the first element is a string and the second element is an integer. So from this example we can get a clear idea. You can store whatever data type values inside a list. Now let's move on to dictionary. Dictionary 1. Note this, whenever you are mentioning the key, you have to mention it inside a double quote. Let's say key 1, and let's assign 1 as the value to key 1. Okay, now dictionary 1 has been created. Now if you want to access this value 1, all you need to do is mention your dictionary name, and inside a square bracket mention the key name. Again, you have to mention the key name in double quotes, key 1. See, now let's see an example for set. A comma E comma C. Sorry. Okay, let's try to print the set. Now let's try to add a duplicate value, which means let's try to add one more A inside this particular set. See, it won't accept duplicate values. Let's create a tuple. T1 equals, tuple is just similar to list, but you have to present the elements inside a normal bracket. Let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3. Now a tuple has been created. Let's try to modify it. T1 square bracket 0 equals 1. Sorry, let's say 6. This value 0 mention the first position and the first value inside this tuple T1. In further lectures, we'll be going in depth about indexing and so on. For time being, you just observe what happens. You know, tuple objects does not support item assignment. As I said in the earlier lecture, you can't modify tuples. Now, let's check the final data type boolean. As I said, it does some logical validation. Let's give Python a simple logic validation, whether 1 is greater than 2. See, it returns false. Let's give something in which the logic validation comes as true. Let's say 2 is greater than 1. See, true. And that's it for this lecture. In the upcoming lectures, we'll be discussing the other topics in Python. If you like this video, please do give a like. Please do subscribe to this particular channel. And thank you.